Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is January 12th, and right now we are looking at the mid-level water vapor loop. You can see BC, Washington, Oregon here. Taking a look at this low pressure out here off the coastline here, bringing some rich moisture back up over the Pacific Northwest here, causing some concerns for some flooding and some increased landslide risk across western portions of BC, Washington, Oregon here. Pretty good rainfall amounts, especially along the coastal areas coming up here. Pretty breezy along the Oregon coast this morning as well. As you can see, these little mesoscale lows rotating around this trough off the shoreline here. This is going to weaken and move north, and we're going to bring a stronger storm system towards the southern Oregon coast here on in through Saturday. We'll take a look at that in some detail as well. Now, taking a look here, they have a special weather statement across western Washington for the increased landslide risk, high surf advisory for the coastline here, beach hazard statements all the way down through the Oregon coast. This would include Vancouver Island as well. Avalanche warning for some portions here of the West Cascades. We'll take a look at that in a little bit more detail shown here, but avalanche conditions are ripe. As you can see here, let's back up one page, and you can see there are avalanche warnings going on here, mainly Stevens Pass north, but you can see high avalanche danger exists for all the Cascades, really, all the way down through Mount Hood down there. So heads up for that, folks. Very high avalanche danger right now in the backcountry especially. Now, taking a look here, National Weather Service Seattle, heavy rainfall Thursday and Friday will lead to an increased threat of landslides in western Washington here. Nothing too extreme, but we are getting towards that threshold where the soils are saturated here, and you could start to get some local landslides across the area here. We'll look at a graphic with this with a little more detail here in a moment. This is for Medford, Oregon. This includes the Oregon coastline here. They always put out these good graphics here. Breaking wave heights expected 30 to 35 feet out there. Use extreme caution near the beach down there. You know, those logs out there mean business. You do not want to be caught in the surf when the waves are big here along the Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia coast. Now, taking a look here, significant wave height. Watch how this kind of increases as we go through the day today, peaking sometime this afternoon and tonight here on Thursday night before we slowly start to relax here. Then that system comes in for the southern Oregon coast. Again, another round of fairly large waves for the Oregon coastline shown there. You can kind of see this ebb and flow of these systems moving towards Pacific Northwest on through the extended forecast here, back and forth between some bigger waves towards the coastline shown there. Now, taking a look here, dynamic tropopause, northern hemisphere here. There's Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Hawaiian Islands, Pacific Ocean here. Put it into motion, and you can see this trough kind of weaken and move northward. And that stronger storm comes to Oregon coast shown there. And you can continue to see these polar lobes kind of moving towards Pacific Northwest, bringing some frontal systems through the area. We could get a bit of a break at times as well, too. A little bit of ridging before the next system moves there, and then maybe some more ridging on the backside of that system before we bring another system on in through the 9 to 10 day period shown there, with maybe even some more behind that. So maybe we'll get a couple nice days out of this next 2-week period here across Pacific Northwest. But I always like looking at this diagram here of the cold air across the polar regions versus the warm air across the tropical and subtropical areas there, and just letting it play. Kind of an interesting battle that Earth plays within itself. Now, taking a look here, this is the NAMKM 80-meter wind speed. This is sustained winds here. So you can see as we went through this morning, some decent gusts down to the Oregon coast up towards the Washington coastline. But you'll notice the bulk of this wind stayed offshore here. Some of the higher terrain getting some decent gusts as well. And as we go on in through Friday night, I want to show you the storm coming in on Saturday. You'll clearly see it here. This mid-latitude cyclone with the wind strongest in the bent back occlusion shown there. That's where the warm front and the cold front meet and then wrap back around the cyclone. But some decent gusts coming up here on through the day Saturday across the Oregon coast and some of the higher terrain as well, but nothing too extreme. Now, taking a look here at the European, we're going to go 10 days out with this one here. That first trough lifts northward. There comes that stronger storm, decent gradient on the south side of that for the southwest Oregon coast shown there. And it kind of rapidly fills along the Washington coast and moves inland. Stronger storm into California here. And we get a little bit of a break, then another frontal system, maybe a little bit of ridging here, and then maybe another frontal system after that. This would actually be kind of a strong system here. A pretty good pressure gradient on the south side of it, even though it's not that deep of a low pressure system. But that's purely fantasy at that point, just a fantasy windstorm hunt shown there. Now, this is Seattle, Tacoma, kind of picking up on that breezy period as we go through mid and later next week right now, but it is purely fantasy at this point and nothing too extreme looking right now. We'll continue to watch that day by day. It can change, though. Now, looking at total precipitation in inches, this is hot off the presses, the 12Z 4 a.m. European model run here. Just going to go through 10-day period here, and you can see some decent amounts coming up here. It's going to add to some of that landslide risk here for some of western Washington, western Oregon, coastal regions favored, especially especially Vancouver Island and British Columbia here. And of course, Cascades West going to get the best amount of precip, but there's some decent amounts coming across the Rockies, Northeast Washington, and Northeast Oregon as well. But you can see the rain shadow effect going on across some of Eastern Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and Eastern British Columbia shown there. Now, this is looking at day one excessive rainfall outlook, the coastal area, and even including places Everett northward across western Washington shown here. Here's day two. Again, the Olympics are kind of highlighted there. Day three moves down to California there. Now, taking a look, 1 to 3 day overall winter storm impacts. Travel not too bad across the passes right now. The snow levels are fairly high. The only thing is that the potential for some avalanche danger does occur across some of the highway areas crossing the mountains, and so that could end up causing some delays if some of the snow slides out across the roadway. It can take a while to clear that off there and get traffic moving again, so heads up for that. Now, taking a look here, look at Everett. Payne Field up there is actually above the threshold here for some landslides as we go. Seattle-Tacoma getting close to it here. Tacoma narrows a little bit lower on the threshold there, but they're above the threshold up there. So watch out on some of the higher hills. Just be aware of that potential threat for some localized landslides. Now, this is a drought here, updated January 10th here. You can see we dropped that moderate drought for western Washington. The entire state of Washington is drought-free, if you can believe it right now. There are some abnormally dry regions, but that's just kind of the normal deal here. And in fact, drought itself is just kind of the normal process of our climate. But Washington doing pretty good right now. Oregon, not so good, especially places on the eastern slopes of the Cascades. I keep mentioning this, that exceptional drought out there. A lot of the farmers and farm areas out there really struggling with this exceptional and extreme drought. Hopefully it can help them out here before the spring starts arriving. Now, looking at total snow-Kucher ratio here, put this into motion here. We're just going to go out 10 days here. And you can see once we get out a bit on into next week, we're probably going to build up some of the snow a little bit better. Snoqualmie, Stevens Pass will get a bit more also, and kind of replenish some of the ski areas here as we go through the 10-day period here. And you can see no real threat of lowland snow just yet. We're just kind of biding our time here till the end of January and February, I believe. We'll probably get another flirt with some Arctic air coming up here. There is some models flirting at a little bit of some cold air getting down in here, but I'm not going to start talking about that just yet. We'll look again tomorrow and see how the models trend with some of that activity coming up here. So we'll look at that tomorrow. Now, taking a look here, let's update that so it plays. You can see here, this is the cross section. Actually, you would be below water looking here. This would be the surface, and this would be 450 meters down here, depth in meters. Same thing here, equatorial Pacific. You're talking about the western Pacific on the left and the coast of South America on the right, all the way back into the eastern Pacific here. And these are water temperatures. If you watch on this one down here, you'll notice that the water temperatures are getting warmer here across the equatorial Pacific. That is a pretty strong signal that La Nina is on its way out here. And on the top one too, you can see, watch this, there's that La Nina cold pool there, but this Kelvin wave that moves underneath the surface of the ocean here, starting to emerge a bit out here, and it's probably going to help reinforce itself and probably put an end to La Nina conditions across the equatorial Pacific. There's a new one out today, January 12th here, and you can see the CFS forecast here, January, and the quick climb into neutral conditions as we go into springtime here, and then potentially some El Nino conditions across the equatorial Pacific as we go on in through summer and fall shown here. And this was updated, the probabilities moving on into El Nino shown here. By the time we get into August, you can see we're about a little bit more El Nino percentage here than neutral. But you can see this is just a probability forecast. So don't ever let anybody tell you that we can tell with 100% accuracy what is coming. You can still see there's a 10% chance of La Nina as you go on into next summer and fall as well. But the odds are right now about 52% say El Nino is coming as we move on into the fall months here, with still a decent shot at neutral, and much less likely that we'll stay in a La Nina condition as we go on into next winter here. But kind of showing you what we expect shown there. So anyway, yeah, we'll keep watching out for those storm systems. We are remaining in a somewhat active pattern here, and there is some wind potential coming up here as we go through the 10-day period. And some of the models were flirting with some colder air as we go through the next 2-week period here, but nothing struck me as worth talking about just yet. I'm going to watch the models for a couple more days, and we'll take a look at those things as well. And we'll probably check again on the Pacific North American Oscillation, see what the models are saying on that front as well. Maybe look at some more extended forecasts also and see how we're doing as far as looking at some cold weather as we move on into February shown here. But right now, just kind of watch out for the landslide and some flooding potential, and hopefully you can start to replenish that snowpack across some of the pass areas and the skiing areas. And remember, the avalanche danger is extremely high across British Columbia down into Washington right now, and there are avalanche warnings in effect. So if you're heading out to the backcountry, be aware of that. Anyway, click like, subscribe, click join if you want to help support the page below. We're almost at 30,000 subscribers. You guys make this possible. You make it worth my while to come here every day and do these briefings. I enjoy it very much, and I enjoy the weather community here across the Pacific Northwest. A very positive experience overall. And let's keep it rolling here, folks, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.